So starting today, okay, we're about 11 daf behind. Okay, so welcome to Masechus Kiddushin. Welcome myself also. Like I haven't been here in a long time. So get into the Kiddushin. It's the last Masechta of Seder Nashim, and why Gittin goes before Kiddushin? I think some unfortunately say because the Yatzami Beisov Al Chavai Sali Shacher. But the pasuk talks about that order. Even though it does say in the beginning, can't take the woman. So let's talk about the marriage before the divorce was the marriage. But it's, okay, but Kittin and then Kedushin. It's very interesting that the first parak only has one Mishnah about Kedushin, and the 42 daf after that is going to be 41 is going to be about other subjects. Very diversified Masechta. The whole first parak is tangent besides the first Mishnah. So there'll be a lot of other subjects besides Kiddushin and this Masechta. So the Mishnah starts. Isha, niknes, b'shlosha drachim, v'kones asma b'shtei drachim. A woman is acquired with 3 ways, means for marriage. A woman is acquired for marriage for 3 ways, and she reacquires herself with 2 ways, which means when she's acquired. So Kiddushin, we said, is not an assumed. Kiddushin means that she becomes designated to this man, and then the Nesuin would be the second stage where they consummate the marriage and she comes to live with him. So what does Kiddushin accomplish? That she's usher to anybody else. Kiddushin and Erusin is the same thing. The word Erusin in modern Hebrew is a terrible mistake. They made it to be called engagement. Engagement is a garnished. It's just called Shidduchin. It's an agreement. They make it now Tanoim in order to make some obligation. So they make Tanoim with Knossos, but it's a monetary contract, Tanoim. That if anybody backs out, so there's going to be a fine, a penalty. But the word Erusin really means Kedushin, and then she becomes a Eishes Ish. And the Mishnah says there are 3 ways to acquire her. That's going to be with Kesef. Right away, it's going to say Kesef Shtar and Via. Nowadays, the minik is with Kesef. And she becomes a Eishes Ish. She becomes a married woman. She becomes an Arusa. And now Marasa is Mamash Skila. If somebody has relations with her as Chayiv Skila, she's married. She's married to this man. But they don't live together with each other until the Nesuin, which usually in those days was about a year later. So that's going to be in the Mishnah. Right now, it's going to say there's such a thing as Kedusha Bia. We'll get to that right away. So just the point, the first Aisha, then her nickname is acquired. So some people they think, I think, and even I've heard it, that they think that the husband owns the wife. But that's not true. The husband doesn't own the wife. It's only as far as this halacha that she's not allowed to marry anybody else. And we had a Gemara in Gittin Lamates that Mama should beferish these words. Just to point it out, Gittin Lamates, it says that the kinyan of a woman is for Isra, not for Mama. And the contrast in Eved, you own the Eved, you own the Mominist, the go for the moment. And over there, Lamates in the base, it just talks about this point, and I think it's important. Why is it called the word kinyan? Yeah. So the verse will talk about it. The pasuk calls it Yikach Isha. It doesn't say the word kinyan in the Torah. And we find 3 terms. One is called niknes, what it says over here, which is not in the Torah, and this kedushin, which is also not in the Torah. The Torah only says Yikach Isha. The Gemara in Gittin Lamed Testament base says Ma Isha. Isur v'lo mamona. The one says Ferish Isur v'lo mamona, that a husband doesn't own his wife, and if he's mafkir her, it doesn't make her mutter. There's nothing with mamona. It has to do with the Isser. So this Mishnah should just be emphasized that the word niknes doesn't mean any kind of a monetary acquisition. It means that she's acquired to him in the sense that she's also to marry anybody else. Right? She is could be called Kinyan Kaspo. She does eat truma. Kinyan Kaspo is supposed to by truma. It is true that she's called Kinyan Kaspo because the way that he acquired her, one of them of the ways is kesef. But it's not a mominus. It's not called that he owns her. He doesn't own her. It just the Kinyan Kaspo means that the way to make the Kinyan Isser is through money, but he doesn't own her. That's a very nice point. Okay.
You have a Gzer Shava, Kicha.
There's a Gzer Shava as far as the word goes, but we see that
because the land you do own.
Land you do own, right? So that's going to be a drasha, but it's going to be a drasha how to accomplish this kinyan. But the kinyan is not that he owns it. A husband doesn't own his wife. I once heard a Pesach Kiddushin under the chuppah telling that the kinyan is you own her, like the same way. So mamish the opposite. I think is wrong. That did everybody do it? He didn't say it out loud. He just said half to be close. But I think that's not true. That when a husband's making a kinyan, he's giving a ring. He's not owning her. Yeah, right. I think also that also the rayon, the idea of marriage also, you shouldn't think that he owns his wife. There's a kinyan that she's now his, and the fact that she's miyuchet to him. Each nickname to Shlosh Drachim said three ways that she becomes acquired, that she's now his, which means designated for him, and not mutter to anybody else. She could reacquire herself in two ways. And now it explains what are the three, what are the two. Nicknames bekesef, b'shtar b'bia. One way to make the kinyan is that he gives her money. A shabbat pruta, which I jump. It's going to say in a second how much that is. And that's what we do nowadays. You give a ring. It doesn't have to be a ring. It can be a coin also, or anything which is valuable. But the kinyan is called kesef. B'shtar. He gives her a document, nothing to do with the money. He gives her a contract, a piece of paper that says, Ariat Mukudeshesli b'shtar zu. And he gives it a star, and now she's his. And Bibia, that they have a relation, they cohabit with the purpose of kiddushin. So it seems that it's not Nisuin. This makes her, maybe he's about to talk about, she didn't come to live with him yet, permanently. She's still living by her father's house for another year. But they made a bia for the purpose of marriage. So I don't know the details that she become a Nesua right away, or this is only called kiddushin. It's called kiddushin bia. So I don't know the details, but this means there was no kesef, there was no shtar, and before he makes the bia, he says, and that's Moshe Yisrael, and they have a relation, and that's it. Now she's his. Is she in the Su yet? I'm not sure. If she goes to live by her father's house still until they're ready to actually live together, maybe she's called an Arusa still. But I don't know the details of that. But there are three ways to acquire the woman to become an Arusa, Kiddushin, which is Kesef Shtar and Bia. Now, there's a parenthesis over here, because it isn't really our subject, and we're going to continue soon about 4 lines later to say how does she reacquire herself Kona Satzma, but has a short tangent about how much money is it. It doesn't talk about the details of shtar, it doesn't talk about the details of bia, it just talks about some detail about kesef, how much money. The kesef, how much money? B'sham yomim b'dinner, or b'shav dinner, b'shal omrim b'pruta, b'shav pruta. B'shal lenient says a pruta is enough. B'sham says it has to be a dinner, which is a lot more. It's 192 times more. In a dinner, there are 192 prutas. So as much as a pruta is, they say nowadays about 15, 20 agarot, they think that's what a pruta is. So times that by 192. It's also not a fortune, but it's not, and it's not the ksuba they can make it. The person husband brings in, there are a lot of obligations, but the kiddushin itself, the act of kiddushin, is with a shabbat pruta. Beishamai says no, it has to be with a dinner, which happens to be 192 times more. It doesn't have to be a coin. It can be shabbat dinner, shvei dinner. Shabbat dinner is worth a dinner. Or Beisil says a pruta, or the value of a pruta. It could be an apple. It could be a banana. It could be something which is worth a pruta. Maybe even half a banana. It has to be the worth of a pruta. Yeah, we had a more with a tamar over there. It was questionable. It's only the little bit tamar on the pit, which was ready, maybe less than a shabbat pruta. The kesef, yeah. V'kama pruta. Echad mishmar of Isser Italki. A pruta happens to be an eighth of an Isser. There's an Italian Isser. That was the coinage. An Isser. It comes from in Italy. And this, a pruta was an eighth of that, which wasn't, I just compared it to a dinner, so I said it's 192 times more. That's the end of the parentheses, and back to the subject. We learned the three ways that a woman is acquired to her husband to become usher to anybody else. Kesef, shtar, and bia. And now we said that kesef is a machlokes how much, either a dinner or a shabbat pruta. We passed like B'Hillel, a shabbat pruta. How does she become to reacquire herself that she should be mutter to anybody? A get, either the husband divorces her, gives her a get, which was the homosexual we learned before, and Misa Sabal, the husband dies. So then she reacquires herself. Till now she was not to marry anybody because she was acquired by her husband. After the husband dies, she becomes mutter to marry anybody. No Mishnah. How about a Yavama? How does Yavama become acquired to her Yavam? And how does she become released? Yavama nicknames Bebia. Only one way. There's no three ways. There's not Kesef, it's not Shtar. That the husband died without children, so now she's the kuka to the Yavam. And the only way that he becomes the husband is when he actually has relation, the be alone. There is the thing with Rabbanan that it says that it's good to do ma'amar before, which is that it gives her also kesef. I don't know, Mukudeshes or Miyubemes, I'm not, but Mukudeshes, but it's not necessary. And with the Raisa it doesn't work. It's only the Rabbanan. The only way that she becomes his wife is only with Bia. And how does she become released from the Yavam? If the Yavam will give her chalitza, one of the brothers does chalitza, the whole process of chalitza, that she says that he doesn't want to take me, and she takes off the shoe and she spits, all that. So that's chalitza, and then she becomes released and looked at everybody else. And Misa Yavam, if he dies, then there's no Yavam. All the Yavam die. If there are many brothers, then as long as there's one, so she still is kuka to the Yavam. But if the Yavamim die, so then she's released, then she's allowed to marry anybody. Of course, once the Yavam marries her, then it's a regular marriage, and she gets released only with a get, and is a regular wife. But if there's Zika, so then the only way to release it is with Chalitza or Misa Yavam. So, Sikum, that a woman that gets married is acquired for kiddushin, kesef shtar bia, and she releases herself with a get, or if the husband dies, and she's released. Now she releases herself. She gets released if the husband gives her a get or the husband dies, and the yavama is acquired only with bia, and she gets released with chalitza or the yavam dies. The first Gemara is very unique. Today's daf is very unique, and the Gaonim write that it's really not from the Amoram, it's from the Rabbanan Savaroi. Means the generation after there was Tanoam Amoram, then there's Rabbanan Savaroi, which I think were a couple hundred years, that they are the Chachamim who worked on the Shas, and sometimes you have certain personalities in the Gemara that are known as Rabbanan Savaroi. They get into the Gemara also sometimes, they say Rabbachoi, Parach Rabbachoi. Yeah. I think there are others also, and they sort of edited the Gemara, and there's a whole section in Daras Rishonim by Yitzchak Isaac Halevi that explains what the job of the Rabbanan Savaroi were. And after them were the Gaonim, and after them were the Rishonim, after them were the Achronim. But this Gemara is very unique, and it's going to analyze each word, not the regular way the Gemara does. In some places, we got different sections in the Gemara that came from the Rabbanan Savaroi. Yeah. So the Gemara is going to talk about every single word come out, like why it shows these words in the first sentence. Isha niknes. That's what it says in the Mishnah. Ma'ishnacha diktaniya isha niknes, or ma'ishnahasam diktaniya ish mekadesh. It uses a different word for marriage. It uses kinyan and it uses kiddushin. How come our Mishnah uses the word of kinyan, isha niknes? It could have said isha miskadeshes. How come over there in the next parak it says ish mekadesh? When it talks about marriage, it uses the word of kiddushin. They're going to other kashas also, isha and ish. But the question is here, kinyan and kiddushin. How come it changed the terminology of marriage? Happens to be that this is the next parak. This is the first word, the first Mishnah in the second parak. It also happens to be the next Mishnah about kiddushin, because the whole first parak, which is going to be 41 blot now, is going to be tangents. It's not going to be about kiddushin at all. So it happens to be the next Mishnah about kiddushin, and it changed the term. Instead of saying kinyan, it uses kiddushin. In fact, the Masechta is called Maseches kiddushin, and it does not call Maseches kinyan, like the beginning of Isha Niknes. So how come here it uses the word kinyan, and later on it used the word kiddushin? The Gemara answers because one of the ways is kesef. The answer is going to be a few steps. One of the ways of a marriage is going to be kesef. And kesef, how do you know there's a kinyan kesef? How do you know that a woman can be acquired with kesef? They're giving a shava fruta, menalan, because gamar kicha mistay Ephron. There's a gzera shava to buying a field. Like it says by Ephron, when Avram bought the field from Ephron, Marsa Machpelah, he used the word kich over there, used the word kich over here by marriage. How does it say that? Where's that gzera shava? Ksifacha kika chishisha. Here, when it talks about marriage, he uses the word kicha. Uksifasam by Avram and Ephron. Nasati kesef hasadeh kach mimeni. Then Avram said, I'm giving you the money for the field, take it from me. So the word kicha also, kach. So we have a gzer shava between marriage and purchase of a field. And so far we would say, okay, so call it kicha, call it a isha nikches, which is interesting that never do we find such a word, a isha nikches. The Mishnah doesn't talk about the term of the Torah, is mamish not used in the Mishnahs. But it's saying there's going to be a reason why we could call kicha kinyan. So this is based on the Torah language. It's not mamish Torah language, it's a gzer shava from the Torah language. And kicha, ikri kinyan, dechsev asada shakon Avram. You talk about buying, they did talk about kicha, kach mimeni, but it also uses the word kinyan, kashakon Avram. So when you talk about a field, use the word kinyan. And now we're talking about a woman, marriage, also because of the gzer shava, it allows us also to use the word kinyan. So kiddushay kesef, we want to call kinyan. That's all we say, isha niknes. It doesn't explain why over later on we use Rish Mekadesh. How come we changed? But at least explains where you get the word niknes from, because since Kiddushay Kesef is learned out from purchase of a field, and purchase of a field is called kinyan, so we're going to call marriage also kinyan, Isha niknes. There's one more pasuk besides Ashad Shakon Avram that you find that the purchase of a field is called a kinyan. You also find Lamed Beis, another pasuk. Inami, so that's because of Yiknu. That's also pasuk in Yirmiyah. It's talking about that the Yerushalayim was destroyed, and Hashem is telling the prophecy that the future, that it's going to come a time again that they're going to buy fields, even though Yerushalayim is Chorev, but there's going to be a time people are going to buy fields again, like Baruch Hashem today. So that's because if anybody goes to buy a field or a house, so they should know that their nevuah is being Mekayim, that people are buying fields for money, like once again in Yerushalayim. So there was no dream. That was like that there's going to be such a kind of matzah. It was so horrible. Everything was destroyed. Yeah, and to say that in the future is going to be that people are going to be buying fields. Yeah, that is yeah. So you see that purchase of a field is called kinyan. So therefore, Tanya Isha Niknes. The reason why it says Isha Niknes, to sum it up, is because one of the ways is going to be kinyan kesef. Kinyan kesef is learned out from a kinyan of a field, and by field it's called a kinyan. Even though the linking factor between the marriage and the purchase of the field is not the word kinyan, it's the word kicha. But that's for the Gzera Shava. Once you have the Gzera Shava, so whatever we're going to call purchase, we're going to call the marriage, and over there it's called a kinyan. So here we also call it a kinyan. That's why the Mishnah was allowed to use the word Isha Niknes. It's very fascinating to me that the Mishnah doesn't use the word of the Torah Isha Niknes. That's mamish, you don't find it any place. The Torah, that the word the Torah used for marriage, the Gemara doesn't use either kinyan or kiddushin. Okay. Likuchen, thank you. It does have it. Thank you. It does have something. So now what? No, yeah, good. Yeah, but it's true. Something. It's called Lakichen. Yeah, Likuchen. Good. Thank you. Benisni Asam Ishkon. Okay, so once you decide that you want to call marriage kinyan, so be consistent. Call it always kinyan. How come the other Mishnahs don't say that? And there's a Mishnah from Elbach that he points out that there's only this Mishnah that says kinyan. Other places the Mishnahs don't use the word kinyan, always uses kiddushin. So how come over there it doesn't continue to use the word kinyan? In the next paragraph it says Ish Mekadesh. Why does it say Ish Kona? The answer is there's a difference between the Torah. Sometimes the Rabbanan wanted to use the word kiddushin, but they start off using the word of the Torah. Meikara Tani Lishna Daraisa, Ubasov Tani Lishna Rabbanan. The first time here, in the beginning of the Mishnah, it uses the word that the Torah uses. Now, just in parentheses, it's not mamish the word the Torah uses. The Torah uses the word kicha, but it's enough for the Gzera Shava to learn out that it's also called kinyan. So that the Raisa term is kinyan, and then from then on they invented a new term, Lishna Rabbanan, and they call it kiddushin. Omai Lishna Rabbanan. What is the mashmos? What is the meaning of the word kiddushin? The asala kuli alma kekdesh, that he's answering her to everybody else. What does kiddushin affect? What does the marriage affect? It affects that she's not allowed to marry anybody else. The same way hekdesh means that it's for Hashem, it's designated to Hashem, and nobody else is allowed to use it. So when a person marries a mekadesh a woman, what does that mean? That she becomes designated to him, and everybody else is not allowed to marry her. That's what kiddushin affects. Just the interesting thing to me, it's interesting that in the bracha of Birchas Eresin, we do in the chop of Birchas Eresin before he gives her the ring. So the Masad Kiddushin says a bracha. Really, it's the Chassan's bracha, but that's because not all the Chassan know how to say it. So they mechaber the Masad Kiddushin to be motzi him. But really, it's the Chassan's bracha that is being motzi. Bracha to Hashem Elokeinu melech Mashiach Kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu al haroyos v'asalanu v'sarusos v'tilanu v'sanasuos lanu v'dechupo v'kiddushin bracha to Hashem v'kadesh Amo Yisrael v'dechupo v'kiddushin. So they made it the kind of now to Kadesh Lo Levai just Mishani Yodeh, that everybody has somebody being motzi. So it's not the kind of the Gemara, but that's the minute again. Probably is better not to, because the next question is online and he's gonna try to say it's not gonna work. Okay. So maybe he'll try to say it, then it's not gonna work. Okay. So just the interesting thing, really, is the Birchas Eresin. In those days, the Eresin and the Sulam were very far apart. He's only doing Eresin now. What's the bracha? What's he saying a bracha about? That you're not allowed to marry an arusa. But what's the bracha? What's the tochen of the bracha? He also brings in about hitalanos and asuas. Then asuas eventually in a year from time is going to be mutter to marry an asuas lanu. What's the bracha? What's the tochen of the bracha? What are you saying? It's not saying asalanos arusas that the chassan is not allowed to have relations with the arusa. That's not what the bracha is saying. The bracha is saying that the arusa is asa to everybody else. which is the whole Hagdara. That's what he's doing. When a man is Mekadesh a woman, he gives her a ring. What is he doing? He's making her designated only for himself, and everybody else is Asar. So that's the bracha. So then he Asalanu, not me, not the Chassan. Asalanu Asarusa. So no one's allowed to marry an Arusa. And that's what he's accomplishing now, that he gave the ring and he said, so now she's designated only for him to marry eventually, and nobody else is allowed to marry. So that's the point. Asalanu Asarusa doesn't mean that the Chassan is not allowed to marry the Arusa till the Nisun. It means that no one else is allowed to marry her anymore. And there they put in the word Nasuas Lanu. Don't think you're allowed to marry somebody else's Nasua. You're not allowed to marry somebody else's Arusa, and you're allowed to marry your own Nasua. But I think it's pushed down the brother. Okay. Anyway, what does it say? The reason why they're one and Russia designated and only designated him and nobody else. And I heard Russia's, I don't know if it has any shorish, that the reason why they wanted kiddushin, you should know it's a kind of a kedusha, it's a kind of a holiness, but the Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara says lashon of kiddushin is that it's designated only for him and nobody else. Okay, so we figured out how come our Mishnah says kinyan, niknes, and how come the other Mishnahs use the word kiddushin. This is lashon of the Ras, so this is lashon of the Rabbanan. Now, new kasha, a new question that the Rabbanan Savaroi want to know. When Nisni hacha ish kona. Now we're talking about, why does it talk about the man and the woman? Our Mishnah says isha niknes. It talks about the woman from the woman's perspective. The woman is acquired. And the next Mishnah, the next paragraph, when it wants to talk about marriage, it talks about ish makadesh. It doesn't talk about the woman, isha miskadeshes. Now, so that's what the Gemara wants to know. Why doesn't our Mishnah say ish kona? Ish kona the shloshet drachim, or makne the shtei drachim. Why doesn't it say that? So just to point out that the kasha is not so much why our Mishnah is this way and that Mishnah that way, because the next Mishnah really has both. The next Mishnah says ish mekadesh, and ish miskadesh is bo b'shlucha. It does say both ways, because there that's the whole talking of the Mishnah, that it wants to say that the man can make a shliach for his doing, and the woman can make a shliach for her doing. So of course over there has to say ish mekadesh, ish miskadesh. The kasha is in our Mishnah that has only one choice. Which one does it? How come it chose to use the woman from her perspective, or isha niknes? Why doesn't it say or ish kona? So here, what the Dagesh is on the word ish. Why does it say isha? Let us say ish. The answer is no. So as long as everybody said that, as long as it's not too hot. The answer is mishum the kaboy lemisna seifa b'kona sasma b'dida tananami reisha b'dida. The reason the reisha alone could have said just as easily ish kona instead of isha niknes. It could have spoken from the man's perspective. Why does it choose to talk about the woman? Because in the Sefer, we want to talk about her. That Kona Sasma, when she acquires herself to be released and she's mutter to marry anybody that she wants, you have to talk about her. That's why it's going to say Kona Sasma. So therefore, in the Sefer, that's talk about her perspective. So also in the Reisha, talk about her perspective that she's acquired. Isha Niknes. Since the Sefer has to talk about her, so the Reisha also talks about her. And now the question is obvious, how come? You didn't explain that, how come the Sefer has to talk about her? It could have said in the Sefer also, talk about the man's perspective and say at the beginning that he could acquire a wife for 3 ways and he can give her back to herself. Makna. Talk about the man's perspective and say in the Sefer that he is makna herself. Why not? The answer is because not all of the Sefer is the man doing anything. By the get, it would have made sense that it could have said he's Kona, is Kona. How is he Kona? He's Kona with Kesef, Shtar, Bia, he's doing everything. And then the Sefer would say that he's Makna with a get. That's true, he gives the get, but there's another way that she gets released, that's if the husband dies. By husband dying, he doesn't do anything, he just dies. He was very passive about it. He didn't want to do it, and he didn't do anything. He just died. That's like it says in the Gemara, from heaven, they're giving her back to herself. He didn't do anything. So that it's not proper to say, Ish Makna, by Misa Sabah. The words wouldn't make sense. To say the truth is Isha Kona Satsma, she's also not doing anything. She's not killing him or anything. It's not the Isha Kona Satsma. But that wouldn't be as much mashmos that she's the one that she's doing it. But if we say Ish Makna, it would not be proper to say that he's Makna by dying. Another reason why he uses the word doesn't say Ish Kona. Another terrace, why doesn't it say everything on the man's perspective? The first answer was because in the Sefer it can't say Ish Makna. Another terrace, you want to make it clear that the woman is the one who has to agree to the marriage. If it just would say You might think that it's up to the man, and the man can become a woman even if she doesn't agree. He just gives her money or star or bia, and she's married. So the Mishnah wants to say no, that the Isha Nikne, she's the one who's giving herself over. So she's the one who's being acquired. So she has a say in the matter. Not every time that it says such a lashon doesn't mean that you have a say in the matter, like Behema Niknes, later on in the Masechta, doesn't mean always you have to ask the Behema. But the word, but here it's gonna, if it would say Ish Kona, it will be stronger implication that it's all his doing and she has no say in the matter. So we want to be clear that it's not true. She has a say in the matter, and only if she wants to get married does she get acquired. Okay, so we finished about how come it says kinyan and not kiddushin, and how come it says isha on the woman's perspective and not from the man's perspective. And we also talked about the next paragraph that says ish mekadesh, lashon of kiddushin. Over there, that says both hashonos isha and isha. My iri the tani shalosh, listening shlosha. Another question now, and this goes into feminine and masculine. The numbers, there are two ways to count it. You can count it in the masculine. Echad, Shnayim, Shlosha, Arba, Chamisha, and you can count it in the feminine. Achad, Shnayim, Shalosh, Arba, Chamesh. It's a little confusing sometimes because usually we used to, when it has a hey at the end of the word, it's feminine. But by the numbers, it's the opposite. That Shlosha is Lashon masculine, and Shalosh is feminine. And it says in our Mishnah, Shlosha Drachim. I'm sorry. It says Shalosh Drachim. Shalosh Drachim. Shalosh Drachim is feminine. And the Gemara is assuming that the word derech is masculine, Lashon Zohar, and therefore the Gemara said it should have said, assuming it should have said Shlosha, that it's not regular to say Shalosh Drachim, it should have said Shlosha Drachim. O my iri the Tani Shalosh, this is Shlosha. Right. And the question is, why do we pick feminine? We should have chosen masculine. The Gemara thinks that the word derech is masculine. The answer is no, the word derech is feminine. When it talks about the derech, when it talks about the road, a path, so we find in the Torah that it's used in a feminine form, as you find when it says about Yisro telling Moshe to teach the people. So it says that you'll inform them of the way to go in it. And when it says the word it doesn't say bo, it says ba. So you see that when it's referring to the road, it refers to it in the feminine. So of course, if the word derech is feminine, so you have to say the word shalosh. Shalosh is the way you say feminine. So Aisha Miknes b'shalosh drachim. But the one says that's not true. I'll show you places where you see the word derech is used in the masculine. Over there it talks a Mishnah in Zavim that talks about that a Zav is a kind of an emission that a man has. Sometimes it's not regular, and it's not semen. It's not a seminal emission. It's something else, some kind of disease. It sounds like that's not normal. And if he has an emission, it becomes very tummy. It's a very tumah. And over there it says that it's only tummy if it was natural, but if it was something which was considered an onus that came by some forced way, so it doesn't make him tummy. So there's a way to check the zav if he had a emission by onus or not. So it says you check him about 7 ways. You check the zav, you investigate seven issues. One is going to be if he ate, if he drank, if he ate too much, if he drank too much, other things that might have caused the emission, and then it's not going to be tummy. And over there, uses the word shiva drachim. Shiva, he said, is masculine. You just told me that the word derech is feminine. You brought a pasuk even, and the Mishnah Baya says shalosh drachim, which is feminine. But I'm showing a Mishnah that says it's in the masculine. Nisni sheva. It should have said sheva drachim if you're telling me that it's feminine. The Gemara answers that the word derech also is found in the masculine. Again, over there, it's using the word derech, and we do find sometimes that derech is called in the masculine. The derech echad. Here it is, derech echad. It doesn't say derech achas. It says derech echad. Yetzu elecha. Over shiva doesn't say sheva. Over shiva drachim yilusu lefanecha. Over there, it's talking about when you're going to be victorious over your enemies. They're going to come against you, the whole army, and then you're going to overpower them, and they're going to scatter and run away, and they're going to go back in seven roads. They'll come towards you in one road, and they're going to flee from you in 7 roads. And both times in the pasuk it says the word derech in the masculine, the derech echad b'shiva drachim. So that's the contradiction. So now it's a contradiction, as the Gemara says, both in the psukim and in the Mishnayos. Yachi kasha kroy adadi, v'kasha nami mastisna adadi. The pasuk is a stira. Sometimes it calls it masculine, sometimes it's feminine, and also the Mishnayos, but also it says feminine, and the Mishnah in Zavim uses it in the masculine. How come? So of course the answer is going to be that it can be mashma both. That's not a kash, not a real stira. But the question is, if there's a choice of using masculine or feminine, how come the pasuk sometimes chooses this way? How come the Mishnah sometimes chooses that way? So that's what the Gemara is going to explain now. That the word derech really has both genders. It can be called the masculine and the feminine. And each time we're going to refer to it according to the subject matter. The answer is, the psukim is not a contradiction. Why we have the psukim that that Yisrael told Moshe to teach the people the right road, the path in life, and the pasuk by war that it says they're going to come against you on one road and they're going to go back in many roads. And over there it's in masculine. The answer is the Torah ikvi lashon nekeva. When it says that Yisrael told Moshe to teach the people the road, the path. So he's talking about what's the path? It doesn't mean the physical road. It means he should teach them the path of life. So that's the Torah. And Torah we know is lashon nekeva. Now, of course, Torah is lashon nekeva. You see the whole Torah, and it always says Torah lashon nekeva. For some reason, the Gemara goes to a pasuk and tell him to prove that Torah is lashon nekeva, that it's feminine. I don't know why the Gemara had to go so far. It doesn't say Torah Hashem Tomim. It says Meshiv Nefesh. It says that the Torah Tamimah, which is feminine, and also many other rights also that the Torah is lashon feminine. Those are Torah, many psukim where it shows us that it's nekeva, but the more reasons possible to show that it's nekeva. So therefore, kasavulav lashon nekeva. Since the derech that it's talking about is the derech Torah, so it says it in the feminine, and therefore it says yel hubot. And Hasam, the Malchamakai, the other pasuk which talks about that they come against you in war and they're going to flee. And who is in war? The path of war is the men. The men go to war. The women don't go to war. The Daka Shalish Lasas Muhammad. Daka Shalish Lasas Muhammad. Men do war. The women don't do war. So therefore, that's why the Torah refers to Shiva Drachim on the roads that they're fleeing in the masculine. Okay, that explains the psukim. That each pasuk, one pasuk uses the word derech in the keva, one in zach, each one according to the subject. Also, masisna dadi lokashin. It's not a contradiction in the Mishnah. Our Mishnah uses the word the shalosh drachim. Each nickname for shalosh drachim in the feminine, and the Mishnah in Zavim says b'shiva drachim both genas azav. Also, they were talking about a woman, they were talking about a man. Achad l'gabi isha koi katani labulash in the keva. Hasam l'gabi ish koi. The Darko, first white line. The Darko shalish ibadek vein Darko shalish ibadek da isha nami baones mitama. Tani lashon zachar. Amish is talking about a woman. Isha niknes means it's based on what we said before that Amish doesn't say ish kohen. It says isha niknes. Since it's talking about the woman's perspective, so it talks about feminine. So that's why it says isha niknes b'shalosh drachim. And over there it's talking about a man. Shiva drachim both kenas azav because only a man. It says the word here Darko shalish is a little difficult. Darko shalish. It's the way of the man. It's only by men are we both the king if he was bonus or not, because as the Gemara says, that a woman, a zava, even if she has an emission, a blood emission, even bonus also she's stomach. So there's no reason to be both her. So the mission over there is talking about dafka men. Shiva drach vodkin as a zav. So that's the reason why he uses lashon zafar. Okay, so the Gemara is happy. We have shalosh and shlosha. We found out that the word derech can mean masculine or feminine. And both in the psukim and in the mishnayos. And each one you always do according to what the subject is. If it's a masculine subject, you talk about masculine. If it's feminine, so Amish is talking about feminine. Isha nikne, so it says shalosh brother. Second wide line. My time at Tani shalosh, mishum derachim. You just finish explaining the reason why it says the word shalosh in feminine is because the word derech and derech could be feminine, but the whole thing is not normal. You don't usually use the word derachim. Usually you would use the word dvorim. So if you use the word dvorim, then it would have been shlosha. How come you talk? In other words, how can you say the word derech instead of davar? That also will explain the shlosha and the shalosh. The only way you can say shalosh is only because you're saying the word derech. Davar is surely going to be lashon zachar. So how come it didn't use the regular word of davar? Nisli dvarim, nisli shlosha. It could have already said the regular way. Say the word isha niknes b'shlosha dvarim. It's not this. It's in ways she becomes acquired in three ways. It could have said it with three things. There are three things that can acquire her. So why doesn't it say the word dvarim? The answer is this is going to be answer number one. I think the Gemara is going to say another answer at eventually. Mishum the kabbalah misli bia ikri derech tachsiv derech yeva ba'alma ken derech isham anafes. That the reason why I chose dafka the word derech is because derech is something reminiscent about bia. We said that there are three kinds of ways to become a woman. Isha niknes shlosha. One is keser shtar bia. Bia is a word derech that refers dafka to bia, as you find in the pasuk in Mishlei derech gever ba'alma. That says other things also before that derech nesha b'shamayim, but derech gever ba'alma that the way of a man is in a young woman, which means to have relations. Over there it's talking about that a woman who's zana, that she has relations, and then she says, I didn't do anything. She covers up. But the point is, when it talks about relations, both in the kosher way and a non-kosher way, derech gever ba'alma, also the next pasuk came derech hisham and hafres, that it talks about the word derech gever, derech hisham. So since it talks about bia with the word derech, so it's very matim, it's very in place to an Amish is talking about bia, so it uses the word drachim. And it could have used the word dvarim, but it's more matim to use the word drachim. That's only one out of three. There are three ways three choices that a woman is nicknamed. One is kesef, one is shtar, one is bia. Only bia is a derech, but the other two are not called derech. So how come you say shlosha drachim because of that? The answer is mishum bia. You're right. Because of one out of the three is a lashon of derech, so we're going to use the word drachim for all of them. If only one out of the three is referred to as derech, so we should have used the word davar, because two out of the three you don't use the word derech. So because out of one out of three, that's why you're going to change the terminology for all three. The answer is hanach nami tzarich biyanenu. The purpose of having kiddushin kesef and kiddushin shtar is also to eventually come to bia. The purpose of marriage is to come to relations. It doesn't stop over there. It's only a way to get to bia. So even though you're right, in the kiddushin stage is three choices: kesef, shtar, bia. But all of them are to come to eventually bia. And it could be even at this point, it could be that the Gemara could have said even without bia alone, without the kiddushin bia. Could be the Gemara would say, since everything is sarach bia, that's the reason why we're gonna use the word rachim, because it's matim. They use the word derech since we're talking about bia over here, especially since one of the ways of kiddushin is going to be bia. So the Gemara is happy why it uses the word derech and not dover. Once it uses derech, then it could be feminine or masculine. We're going to use feminine. Ibo Yisema, Hamani Rav Shimoni, the Tanya of Shimon Omer, Mepnema Omer Torah Yikach Lishisha, V'lo Ksiv Ki Si Lakach or Ki Tukach Ishalish. How come when the Torah talks about marriage, it talks about the man? The man is the one who's the active party, that a man takes a woman. Why doesn't it say that a woman is taken by a man? The Gemara knows that a woman is not going to be the taker. She's not going to be the one who's going to take the man. He's the one who does the kesef, he does a shtar. But the Pasuk could have said, the same way Aisha nicknames, it could have spoken from the woman's perspective. Why doesn't it say in the Pasuk when a woman is taken by a man? How come the Torah expressed itself that the man is the active party? That the man is the one who's going after the woman. The woman is not the one who knocks on the door to make a date. It's the man who's coming to the woman, because that's the nature of the thing. So it's natural. It's really natural that the man should be the one who's the active party trying to get a wife. That's like a mashal for a man who lost something. The lost object does not go to try to find its owner. The loser, the owner tries to find its object. So too, the woman is considered the aveda, and the man is considered one who lost her. And Rashi explains because achas mitzalosav. I'm not sure if that's the only shot, but Rashi says that since the woman was made out of one of his bones, so that's the reason that he's trying to get it back. The point of the Gemara, point would be maybe without Rashi or with Rashi, that the man is considered chaser without a woman. The woman is the hashlama of the man, and he's the one who's missing. She, of course, doesn't have anything without marriage because she's only the hashlama. She surely needs the husband. But it's called that the husband is missing his wife, and therefore he's the one who's the active party. What does the Gemara want with this? I couldn't figure out the Gemara without Rashi. What do you see from Ibo? You're saying that's the reason for what? Rav Shimon says that why is the Torah talk about the husband being the active party? Because he's the one who's, well, the derech is that he goes after the wife. Why does the Gemara explain with that? I couldn't figure it out. Rashi says the Gemara is saying that has something to do with the word derech. How come we use the word derech instead of davar? Because that's something to do with darko shalom or achara. The fact that the whole marriage concept of who marries, how you get married, is something to do with the norm. There's a norm in the world that the man is the one who's active. He's the one who's searching his wife. So too, it's that's the reason why I want to use the word derech. So Gemara says two pshatim why I use the word derech instead of davar. One is because bia is called derech, as you find derech geva ba'alma, and the whole purpose of marriage is eventually to come to bia. So therefore, it's matim to use the word derech, or because the whole issue of marriage, not about the Amish at all. The Amish is saying each and it's talking about the woman's perspective. But the whole issue of marriage has something to do with the norm that the husband, that's the way life is, that the norm is that the husband's looking for a wife. It means that it's to come to nisuin. It's to come to nisuin. It doesn't mean the whole purpose of marriage is only bia, but it means that purpose of the kiddushin is to designate her, us, everybody else is usher, and he's mutter, and that's going to come to the soon, which is going to be the consummation, and that's what they call it, consummating the marriage. That's the marriage is consummated when they have the beer. Maybe I didn't say it right. When I said like the purpose, but it means it's supposed to come to beer. That's a better way to say it. So the Gemara at this point seems to be happy. We know about Shlosha, Aisha, Niknes, Shalosh, the first 4 words. I think that's the point. That Rabbanan Savaroi is not there. It could be that Rabbanan Savaroi said this in other Mishnayos also, but they didn't always put it into the Gemara. But here we said already the first 4 words: Aisha, Niknes, Shalosh, Drachim. The Gemara is not happy yet. The Gemara says the other Mishnah. You're saying the Gemara came out with the Kasha Hakam says Drachim instead of Dvarim, and it said two pshatim. But the Gemara says the other Mishnayos also you have to explain to me why it says Drachim. But it's not. Listen to Dvarim. The normal way is to say Dvorim. I guess if you look at the Mishnah, you'll find many more times that it says Dvorim instead of Drachim. If Gemara can ask a few places where it says Drachim, you have to explain each one. How come by the din of Haibodek Azov it says Drachim? Why doesn't it say B'Shiva Dvorim? Why does it say Drachim? Yeah, here it said two pshatim. How about over there? Also, the darker the mechla yisera lasui leziva, the darker the mishtay yisera lasui leziva. Over there, slang has something to do also with the norm. That is something physical, normal, a normal physical reaction. When a man eats too much, it could cause an emission of ziva. If he drinks too much, all those shivas racham that it says over there, they could be a reason for the ziva. So that's why I use the word derech. That has something to do with the norm, with the orach aro, with the regular way things work. That's why I use the word racham. Similar to the second terrace that the Gemara said that's the norm of a husband getting a wife. But it's not a pasuk, not a mission where it says drachim. You have to explain each one. We have gone through the shas. Wherever it says drachim, you have to explain why doesn't it say dvarim. But it's not. It says over there that there's different trees and there's vegetables. There are different halachas about trees and vegetables. So it says esrog is something unique about an esrog, that in 3 out of the 4 ways it's similar to a tree, and in 1 way of the 4 it's similar to a vegetable. And it says, how come it uses the word drachim? Let it say the word dvarim. Listening to dvarim. The answer is because it wants to say the sefer. It again has something to do with the norm. And that has to say dafka derech, which didn't explain it. How come? Sefer nami nisni davar. But both the Reish and the sefer use the word davar. Why do you use the word derech? Top of the page. There's something normal about it. There's a norm. Something of the derech, the orachara of esrog is similar to a vegetable and something not halachic. In the norm, ma yorek darkly god al kol mayim uvshas likidasi yisuo. Af esrog darkly god al kol mayim uvshas likidasi yisuo. That the norm, the way, the teva, the nature. That's the word. The nature of a vegetable is that it grows on all waters. All waters. Some explain the Pesach over here. I saw it says on the side. What does it mean? Gadol al kol mayim. He says, "Ikap hiwashu al kol mayim she'yavo elav ein mayim mazikim osam klav." That it doesn't, you can't overwater it. That other things, if you water too much, it kills it. But vegetables, as much water as you put, that doesn't make a difference. It can take all the water. So as much water as you use, it's called rakal gadol al kol mayim. And so to an esrog. The more water you put, it accepts all the water. And therefore, b'shas l'kidasi yisuo, that the ma'aser goes according to the time that you picked it off. You separated it from the ground, so too esrog, and that means it doesn't go according to the chanata, it goes according to the time that you took it off. So too an esrog, and therefore shasli kidasi yisura. So it has something to do with the nature. So we use the word derech. Derech has to do with the nature. I use the word norm. Nature is a better word. So each time it says in the word derech, and the Mishnah has a reason by Isha Niknes B'Shlov and Shiv Drachim Botkin Azazav, and also by Shlosha Drachim Esrog Shava. Each time it's because it's something to do with the nature of the issue. Not a kasha, but it's not. Koi Yesh Drachim Shava L'Chaya, Yesh Drachim Shava L'Beima, Yesh Drachim Shava L'Chaya L'Beima, Yesh Drachim Shein Shava L'Chaya L'Beima. There are some animals that are called a chaya, some animals are called a behema. You can call it. I'm not sure which one was. Chaya is called a beast. I'm not sure, and behema. A domesticated animal. Behema is a domesticated animal. The cows, the goats, the sheep, and all that, and the other animals are called chayas, like a deer, etc. So the kosher deer. There are 7 kinds of kosher deer, and there's 3 animals that are behemoths. a cow, a goat, and a sheep. A koi is a kind of an animal that's questionable what it is. What is a koi? Question of what a koi is and the halacha question of, maybe we don't know what it is, but the Gemara knew what it was, which animal it was. But halachically, what is it compared? Is it a chay or an animal? There are halachic differences. Sometimes a chay or behema, there are halachic implications. That a chaya is chay kisi adam and a behema not, and a chaya, the chaylev is mutter, and the chaylev of a behema is zasa. Other implications. Right, the Gemara doesn't bring down the whole mission over there, but it just says this part, and it uses the word drachim. That a koi has drachim, not dvorim. It has drachim, it has ways that is similar to a chaya. It has ways that are similar to a behema. It has ways that are similar to a chaya and a behema. And it has ways that are similar not to a chaya, not to a behema. Whatever the halachas over there are, but it does say the word drachim. And you have to explain how come it doesn't say dvorim. This needs dvorim. And over there it's not to do with the nature. So that's a kasha. That you're finding reasons, you think you have to find reasons for every time it says the word derech instead of davar. So how come in this Mishnah it says the word derech? So far you found about the Isha Niknes, and you found about the Zav, spoken as a Zav, and you found about Esrog, all those things you were successful to find the nature. But here there's no nature. Let's see what it's not. More Mishnahs. Also another Mishnah, Get and Shechua, you also use the word derech. It has nothing to do with the nature of anything. So how come you use the word derech? You just need dvarim. Ella. So now we go back to the whole kasha. The whole kasha was not a good kasha. How come you wanted to say dvarim instead of drachim? Ella kol hecha dika plukta tani drachim v'chol hecha deleka plukta tani dvarim. If the commission is coming to distinguish that in some aspects it's like this, some aspects it's like that, then it's going to use the word derech. Like over here, that it's or maybe it comes to say the only these ways and not other ways. Maybe we'll see Rashi in a second. So then it says the word drachim. If not, use the word davar. So the whole kasha was not a kasha. The Gemara used the kasha with two terutzim over here by us by Isha. One, how come we use the word derech? One teretz was because of bia. Bia is called derech. Second teretz was because it's the nature of the man to go after the woman. And the Gemara tried to add its few teretz in other places also. It has to do with the nature. But the Gemara comes out nothing to do with nature. Whenever you want to say distinguish between some ways yes, some ways not, then use the word derech. If you're going to be all across the board and say that these are the ways, these are the things, then you can say the word things. Plukta here doesn't mean machlokes. Plukta means to distinguish, to divide. When there's a division between different things, so then it's going to use the word dirachim, and if not, then it's going to use the word davar. Taken plukta tani dvarim. Taken nam tani sefer. Rabbi Elazar Omer Esrog Shavaliva b'chol davar. It doesn't say b'chol derech. Rabbi Elazar argues and he says that not Esrog. Like Tanakama says, esrog is 3 in 1. 3 ways like a yilan, 1 way like a vegetable. So but they use the word derech because it was a plukta. There was a difference. Some ways this way, some ways that way. But by Rabbi Elazar it says no, in all ways it's like a yilan. Doesn't use the word derech. It uses the word davar. So that shows us that the only time you use the word derech is when there's a plukta. And in our Mishnah, there's a plukta. Let's see Rashi over here. I didn't have a chance to see Rashi. Ika plukta. Chilik midracha. The derech zu damalakam. Derech zu ein adama. Keep going. Our Mishnah. The Gimel Drachim, that it doesn't say in our Mishnah what not, but as Rashi says that the Mishnah, the Gemara means to say that the woman is acquired only with 3 ways, not other ways. Which other ways not? Chuppah, the low kanya. So we have to get to that Gemara eventually. That chuppah is not a way to be kona wife. Also zav, only these 7 ways, not the 7 ways, not other ways. When it says that it's similar a get shichur and only in these ways. These 3 ways is a get and shechur similar to each other. Okay, that's the end of the Gemara. So we finished what? Ha'isha, niknes, v'shlosha, v'rachim. The shalosh. That should go, everybody. Not too much.